The AquaForest probiotic method, what it does is it introduces a very carefully selected strains of bacteria in order to reduce the levels of nitrates and phosphates in your aquarium, essentially creating an ultra low nutrient system. This system is designed more so for SPS dominated tanks, where your nitrates and phosphates, you want to keep them almost to the undetectable levels, 0.1 through 0.5, 0.1 through 0.04. And what it does is it allows you to take away all of the negative things out of the water that you don't want to have and be able to replenish them using the precise dosage of probiotic bacteria, the culture medium and zeolites, being able to add vitamins, amino acids, and foods. You do need a really strong skimmer for this setup, and you also do need really good lighting. More than likely, you're going to be setting up an SPS dominant tank if you're thinking about going with the AquaForest probiotic method. It is what I use, and I do have a mixed reef, so I do feed heavy to offset what the zeolites and the ProBioS is doing, so that way as it's removing, I'm making sure I'm introducing a lot of nutrients to the system, keeping all my LPS and all my soft corals happy and fed, but having enough of a bacteria population and culture in the tank to where it's able to reduce it to almost nothing, in the same way, heavy in, heavy out, that kind of mind state. I do run probiotic reef salt, and to keep it going, I use components 1, 2, 3. I also use, for feeding my livestock, the ProBioS. For the zeolites, for my corals, I'm using the AquaForest Energy, AquaForest Build, AquaForest Amino Mix, and AquaForest Vitality. All of these things are really good setup. They're super easy to use. The ProBioS is a highly concentrated probiotic bacteria. The supplement, it contains several specifically selected bacteria strains, with the key function is to transform phosphates and nitrates and organic compounds into a biomass that can be easily removed by a skimmer or consumed by corals, sponges, clams, filter feeders. The bacteria will significantly reduce the organic sediment accumulating in the substrate and aquascaping elements. And we're talking about the detritus and all of that. So having these strains of bacteria in the tank is going to help you to be able to remove these things and really get them out. In conjunction with this, I also use the -NP Pro. It's a liquid polymer. It's a media for growth of probiotic bacteria. When the NP Pro is added to the water, the bacteria will grow more rapidly. This bacteria will convert the unwanted nutrients like nitrate and phosphate into a biomass as well. And as a result, valuable bacteria plankton is absorbed by the corals, providing an additional source of food. I do it in conjunction with the ProBioS, and the dosage for me is 1 drop per day. My tank is roughly about 30 gallons. It is a nano system. Now, going along with that, I also use the Zeomix and the carbon stacked inside of my reactor. Inside of that reactor, I have the Zeomix at the bottom and the carbon at the top. The carbon does a slow tumble. What the Zeomix is for is it's a specifically selected blend of zeolites. It's for use for marine and freshwater aquariums. Zeomix should be used in the coral reef aquarium by only experienced aquarists. That's what the instructions say. As the zeolites, they do have a really high absorptive property, and it's stripping everything that you want out of the water. It's taking all those bad things out, and then you're adding them all back in. The same thing with that carbon. That carbon is constantly cleaning out your water. The zeolites, they're not replenished that often. I do let them run for about a month before I swap everything out. The application of the probiotic method, it allows you to keep your nitrates and phosphates at an extremely low level. There is a connection, however, when reducing these compounds. It is necessary to remember not to get rid of the nitrates completely from the water. If there is a problem with very low levels of nitrates, you should increase the food dose. And that's really when I go back to where I'm saying heavy in, heavy out. You want your corals and your fish and everything in the tank to always have access to a lot of everything, all of your vitamins, all of your foods, all of your proteins, all of your amino acids. But you also want to have something that's able to remove all of these things very quickly. A strong skimmer, the zeolites, the carbon, heavy in, heavy out, and it promotes positive growth in the tank because everything is always there, but it's also removed so quickly that algae can't take over. And algae is a big thing that pushes a lot of people out of this hobby pretty quickly. So heavy in, heavy out is how you want to figure it. If everything's always available and you're also able to remove it and you have a plan, then the algae never really takes off in your tank and it becomes more of a successful reef. So let's talk about the supplements that I use in my tank from AquaForest. I'm using the AquaForest Amino Mix. I'm also using the AquaForest Vitality. I'm also using AquaForest Build and AquaForest Energy. Corals are not only affected by water parameters, but they also are affected by the nutrients in the water provided to them in the form of various supplements. The more you add, the more you need to remove. Hence, you do need a strong skimmer for the probiotic method that I'm using when dosing daily and every other day all of these food. By introducing new products to the aquarium, you should usually start with about a half dose, see how everything responds over the course of a week or two, and then continue to add as you go on. Now, it does have instructions on all of these bottles, and it tells you how much you use. But for me, it just works, and that's why I use all 4 of these on the regiment that I do. AquaForest Build, it speeds up the absorption of the calcium and carbon required for building up the coral skeleton. Essentially, it's going to help my coral skeleton grow faster. In a system where I have a nano and I have a lot of small frags, I am trying to get them to base out and start to build up. It is hard to do inside of a nano tank, so having a product like AF Build is going to help me maintain the correct pH level. It's going to help the water keep clear. It's going to work in conjunction with my carbon. It also lowers the levels of undesirable hair algae, and it prevents the growth of pathogenic blue-green algae. So it'll keep all my algae low. It'll help my calcium grow. It contains iodides, carbonates, and calcium, and I do 1 drop every other day as well while the lights are off. My AquaForest Energy is a highly concentrated and nutritious food for coral. It contains omega-3s, omega-6 fatty acids, zooplankton, amino acids, vitamins, carbohydrates. It doesn't contain any phosphate or nitrates. In addition to copper, sulfate reduces the development of zooplankton and increases the bright pastel coloring in SPS corals. So this is really going to help you as a coral food inside of your SPS ultra low nutrient system. I'm also using components 1, 2, 3 plus for my balling method dosing on my Jabo DP4 doser. Component 1 contains all of my calcium, component 2 is all of my alkalinity, component 3 has all of my magnesium. But it's not as simple as that. All of these things are chemicals that are based on the balling method developed by H Balling. It's been fine-tuned by AquaForest. It's intended to dose equal amounts on a regular basis. So in my tank, I dose 15 milliliters a day of each. I have them on 8 different timers. Each timer has a different amount, so that way at the end of the day, everything gets the exact same amount every single day. I base my balling method dosing levels off of my ALK. Since I'm running an ultra low nutrient system, I like to keep my ALK around 8, sometimes sub 8, but usually 8 is like a safe number because you're not too low and you're not too high. So if you don't test daily or if you test once a week, you can't drop off too far off anyways. And it keeps everything in line. My calcium right now is at 447. My alkalinity right now is at 8.2. My magnesium is at 1450. It's running perfect. I very rarely test my mag. I test my ALK weekly and I test my calcium once a month, and it stays consistent using this method. Once it drops down, I just add more. I add another timer. So right now if I have 8 and I notice my ALK drops to about 7.8 and I notice it for over 1 week and I up my dosage, I'll just put on a 9th timer to it and add the extra 2 milliliters or 3 milliliters depending on what I need in my ALK consumption at the time. It's really easy way. It's better than trying to figure out how much calcium, how much ALK, how much magnesium, because you don't really need to test your magnesium all the time. You don't really need to test your calcium all the time. You do need to test your ALK. You do need to know where your ALK is. So having a dosing regimen that is simple and just follows the ALK, it really works out. In addition to this, it also has all of your trace elements. Component 1 contains calcium, magnesium, strontium, barium, lots of stuff. Component 2 contains lots of stuff. Component 3 contains mineral salts and all sorts of stuff. So it's adding all of these things into your tank in conjunction with all of the AquaForest build and the AquaForest energy and the AquaForest vitality, the amino mixes, the NP Pro, the ProBioS, the zeolites, the carbon, the probiotic reef salt as your base. It just creates a really great environment for a reef tank.